there's two ways to think about courage. One is like, do the right thing because you got to grit and bear it and just do it. And it's the right thing because I said it's the right thing, or it's the right thing because the Bible says it's the right thing. If you don't do it, then you're just not doing the right thing. And at some point in time, that's not a compelling motivation for kids. It's not a compelling motivation for us. Because ultimately, if we're just doing the right thing because somebody says it's the right thing, then we start to weigh like, well, why can't I do these other things?
Welcome to Blueprints, a podcast helping parents thrive in today's demanding world. Join Greg and Cody as they explore God's big plan for families and the big job of raising kids.
Welcome to Blueprints. Today we're going to be talking about how to develop courage in our kids. I'm Cody, and I'm here with
Greg.
Okay, so I've got a question for you.
Okay.
As you look back in your childhood and thinking of courage, can you think of a time when you were like really scared?
Oh, man. So I used to be afraid of ghosts.
Okay.
And in the sense of like, you know that feeling when someone's watching you? Or you feel like someone's watching you? Sometimes I would wake up in the middle of the night and I would have that feeling. And I was terrified to like even look or peek at what was there, what wasn't there. So I was a huge Unsolved Mysteries fan.
Okay.
And so aliens and ghosts were my...
Okay. Sometimes I wish I didn't ask these questions.
Yeah.
You know? There's maybe mysteries of you that I maybe kind of wish remained mysteries.
Yeah, so I used to love watching Unsolved Mysteries and like just these stories that were told, and I'd be like, oh no, that's going to happen to me. Just camping with a friend in his backyard one night, and we swore we saw a UFO, and I was like, dude, I am getting abducted. Okay. I do not want this kind of life.
Okay. Yeah.
But what about you, Cody?
Well, I mean, what I love is that you think that if aliens came to the world, that they'd find a bunch of kids camping in a backyard and that's who they'd abduct.
Yeah.
I guess there's two moments that I remember growing up in Arizona. We'd have these things called wolf spiders, which are very big spiders.
That doesn't sound like a fun thing.
It's not a fun thing
to encounter.
What's weird is they're generally harmless to humans. Like if they bite you, it's not going to take you out.
Okay.
It's not like a brown recluse or black widow or something like that. But they're big and they're like kind of hairy and gross. I remember one time we found a spider in our house, and for whatever reason, like I think my parents didn't want to kill it. They were like, let's just put it outside. And so they gave me this job. And I had like a plate over a cup that the spider was in. I don't remember how this happened, or I just remember that this happened.
Right.
Okay. And I'm walking out our front door, and maybe I think because I was scared of spiders, and I think like I didn't like tightly seal the lid a whole lot. So the spider started to crawl out onto my hand.
No.
I was like probably 6 or 7 years old. I screamed. Like it was the most high-pitched scream. Like a sound came out of me that I don't think I've ever thought existed before. I think I dropped the cup, I dropped the plate, shattered everywhere, and I just ran back inside.
Oh my gosh.
And that's haunted me to this day.
Yeah, wolf spider sounds like an Avenger.
Yeah. It does sound like an Avenger. Good association, Greg.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think. The other time was like the first scary movie I watched, and I watched it with my parents, or I guess with my dad. My mom would not watch this movie with me. It's called Wait Until Dark. It's like a classic, like old, like I think Audrey Hepburn is in it. Like,
it's old school.
Old school, but like seriously, like masterclass in like
filmmaking,
great movie. And there's this one scene, I won't give it away, but there's a big jump scare at the end. And my dad obviously knew that it was coming, and so what I didn't realize is like a few minutes before he had like snuck up back behind the couch.
No.
And right when that happened, he also like pounded down on top of the couch right behind me. I jumped so high, like it was like. Oh, it was crazy. So yeah,
and shout out to Dr. Tim Kimmel.
Yeah, Dr. Tim Kimmel. Yeah,
who is material
parenting expert.
So is this episode about courage or how to terrify your kids?
Yeah, well, it could be both.
Yeah,
I don't think we need to make the choice. With that said, we're going to be talking about courage. Courage is simply just the ability to do the right thing regardless of the circumstances.
Yeah.
It's something that we know we want to develop in our kids. It's something we know we want in our own lives. And so we're going to talk about how to do that. And let's turn to our question for that.
Hello, this is Carl, and I live in Cleveland. I have a 12-year-old daughter that has seen a kid at her school get bullied over and over. She really wants to stand up for this kid, but is worried that other kids will make fun of her. I think in her heart she knows the right thing to do, but it's overwhelming for her and she's a little nervous. How can I, as her dad, help give her courage to stand up for others while also navigating the social dynamics of being a middle school kid?
Yeah, thank you for this question. It's something that, like, we've even been talking to our son about, is like, how do you make this right decision in the right moment? And it being bold, and sometimes it honestly being a little bit uncomfortable. So we've been trying to even coach him up and prepare him for situations like this. But like, Cody, why don't you share with us a little bit about this big idea of the episode, and we can start talking through that.
Yeah, no, and I love this question because I think, as a parent with our kids are running into scenarios like this all the time. And we want them to choose the right thing, but we also get the social costs that can come with doing the right thing, the personal costs that can come with it, and how do you navigate that? And I think what's interesting when we look at it in a broader sense, we're talking about courage. It's not just about just doing the right thing. True courage is rooted in a love for the long-term good that comes from doing the right thing in the moment.
Yeah.
True courage, I think we have to be able to expand it out and understand the context that true courage happens in if we're going to want to really develop this in our kids and in our homes. And we see this throughout the Bible. There's so many times when God is asking his people through either Joshua or through the prophets or, different people to have courage or to fear not. Like, I even think of Jesus. One of the, I think, most repeated things that he says to his disciples is, do not be afraid.
Right.
And he's sending them out to do these things. And what I love is that the motivation in all of that is not just, hey, do these things because they're the right thing. It says, do these things, follow me, live out the principles that I have, because the principles that I have for you and the hope that I have for you is better and bigger than anything you could ever want.
Yeah. And you're right. Like, as you look at the whole Old Testament perspective, God asks his people to do so many hard things.
Yeah. And
he emboldens them with courage, with words of encouragement, with, hey, my presence will be with you. You could do this, and have this, you're right, have this heart posture of wanting to do the goodness of God, and that'll drive your actions. And even when I was in seminary, one of the things we were talking about when we talked about Jesus in the wilderness, when he was tempted by Satan, my professor, he said something that just always clung to. He's like, the real miracle right here is Jesus continually does the right thing all the time at all costs. Mm-hmm. Like, it doesn't matter what he's facing in this moment, in this desert moment, in his temptation. His heart is to want to honor, love, and serve God the Father. Yeah. And so his responses in these temptations are always these courageous responses to do good at all times, at all costs. And so that's what I love about even Jesus embodying this for us, and him even empowering us.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I mean, even that example with, Jesus in the wilderness and all the temptation, part of the reason why he was able to stand up and be courageous and do the right thing is because he had such a deep love for the outcome of the right thing.
Right.
He knew that, when Satan promised him all the kingdoms of the world, for example, just as long as he would bow to him, that sounds like a good deal. That sounds like an easy win. But he knows the bigger picture. It's not about the power over that. It's about understanding where true power comes from and making sure that we know that everything is God's, and that with God as the true king, then everything can be in its place.
Yeah.
And so I think one of the really important things is there's two ways to think about courage. Like, one is do the right thing because you got to grit and bear it and just do it.
Right.
And it's the right thing because I said it's the right thing. Or it's the right thing because the Bible says it's the right thing. If you don't do it, then you're just not doing the right thing. And at some point in time, that's not a compelling motivation for kids.
Right.
It's not a compelling motivation for us. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Because ultimately, if we're just doing the right thing because somebody says it's the right thing, then we start to weigh well, why can't I do these other things? What's wrong with maybe just going along with my friends and ignoring this person? Mm-hmm. Really, what's the worst that's going to happen? Type thing like that. So that's one way of seeing courage. And I think if we're continually doing that, I think we're going to struggle to actually see that implemented in our kids' lives. However, if we're understanding courage through the biblical lens of courage is the result of deep and abiding faith in the good of what God has promised, then we start to see how we can develop those muscles on a day-to-day basis, even in the toughest of circumstances, to do the right thing.
Right. Cody, one of your favorite books is You Are What You Love.
Mm-hmm.
James
K. Smith. Yeah.
K. Smith. And like, it's really a book kind of like we're driven by our love and what we love. And it is like I could tell my kid to do the right thing just out of, and just sheer obedience of rule following. But as we've talked about in previous episodes, we really want heart transformation.
Oh, yeah.
And we want our kids, we want us to be responding, our hearts to be responding out of what we love. And we're trying to shape our kids' hearts right now in the Jesus way. And really, this is what justice is in a lot of ways. It's like doing this courageous right thing. And that's what God wants us to do, is to involve ourselves in this world, and maybe that even leads us into what's at stake.
Yeah. Well, just as you were talking, I was thinking like there can be a wrong way to do the right thing, and that's not what we really want. We don't want our kids to have the courage to become like rule following like monsters.
Yeah.
That just shame other people into doing it.
Right.
Like I think of the parable of the prodigal son. The second son did the right thing. Like the older son did do the right thing, but he ends with no connection and no relationship with the Father because his right thing was motivated by the wrong thing.
Right.
And so I think that's kind of just an important thing to note. Like, we're not talking about the courage to do the right thing because it's the right thing. We're talking about the courage to do the right thing because we believe in the goodness of God.
You just said there's a wrong way to do the right thing, and that totally sounds like it could be like a Bob Dylan lyric.
It could be a great country song. I'll work on it.
I'm hoping you're going to write a song about that.
There's a wrong way to do the right thing, and it could be like a cool like country dance song. Yeah, like you kind of tip your.
This is what launches you.
Yeah, this is going to be
your break.
This is my big break. I love it.
Cody Kimmel with The Wrong Way to do the right thing.
Yeah. Hey, I like it. Yeah. It sings. Yeah.
Maybe that's what'll get us on Conan.
Yeah. So what's at stake if we're not doing this with our kids? If our kids grow up without the courage to do the right thing in the hard moments, ultimately, I think the biggest thing that they will miss out on is the big good things that God has for them in their life.
Yeah, that's good. Because we want them to bring more of the goodness of Jesus into the world. And we want all followers of Jesus to be able to bring his goodness into it because it's needed. And when we're not living out that, we might be neglecting casting some light where darkness needs to be cast out.
Yeah.
Emboldening our kids to do these right things in the right moment out of a heart posture, shaping their hearts to see that. I think that's so cool. My family and I were in downtown Seattle over the summer. We went on a Seattle trip. It was a really cool moment. My son just went to the shop. He buys this Zelda wallet. Mm-hmm. It's a really rad wallet, honestly, but we're sitting there, we're walking.
As wallets go.
Yeah, right. And there's this homeless guy standing with the sign, and he's not saying anything. He's just standing in the middle of the sidewalk. And my son just goes up to him, breaks out the Zelda wallet, and takes out his own money and starts giving him a gift. Mm-hmm. And it was just like this really sweet moment that my wife and I got to witness. We didn't encourage him to do that. We didn't say, hey, what would you think? It was just kind of out of his heart that he was drawn to want to do this. And we even asked him, like, hey, like, what kind of drove you to do that? He's like, I just thought he might need it more than me. And it was like a cool little moment.
That is a cool moment. And it's cool when we get to see our kids actually act in courage, kind of unprompted in those things. There can be almost like this, like, I think, misunderstanding of God's law and the right thing as like, and maybe this is like the American or Western culture, like there's like this rebellious thing of like, do your own thing, do it your own way, like don't follow the rules, like and almost like a very self-centered, like driven, we're going to do what we want because we want to do it, to the point where we can look at like following what God would want, like going back to the question of like, God would want the daughter to include this kind of cast out student in lunch and make her feel welcome. And like, that is very much so in line with God's desire for us as humans, is to make people feel loved, cared for, and go particularly after the outcast. We look at that stuff, and I think it's so easy to think like, have this negative opinion of the intention of God's law, that the law was made for our like failure or for keeping us from good or anything like that. Like, when the Israelites went into Israel, like when they're coming in and God is calling them to be courageous and to continue to follow the law, I think it's so easy to think like, oh, he was just trying to keep them from the fun that they were doing. Like, but he was really trying to preserve them and keep them from the harm that can come from foolishness and harm that can come from doing these things that are outside of the context of the way God really intended us to live and work with one another. So I think coming back to that, what's at stake if we can't teach our kids, if we're not helping our kids make those hard decisions that can cost them things in the moment, we are keeping them from this deeper good that comes through the law and of God.
Yeah.
One of my favorite passages is Psalm 119. It's something I come back to all the time. And throughout it is just this deep and abiding love for God's law. Like that's just what the whole psalm is about. And some of it was like this baffling idea of like, I don't think I love God's law. Like, so what's the big thing? Like, how can this person be so enamored by the law of God? And I think because when you really understand it, the law ultimately builds this beautiful, good life that God intended for us to thrive in. And so if we're not doing this with our kids, if we are either not helping them along the way, or if we're not guiding them towards these things, I think our kids are going to miss out on the goodness of what God had for us by following him. Like the goodness that can come from inviting in the stranger, the goodness that can come from waiting for love and romance and things like that, and preserving and honoring the goodness of that type of stuff in relationships, honoring the goodness of telling the truth and not being riddled with guilt and shame and stuff like that. Like, I think that if we can help them through that, not just by reminding them, hey, you need to do the right thing because it's the right thing, but say, you need to do the right thing because it's also the good thing.
Yeah.
That's when we start to see real change.
Yeah. And especially like, as you were talking about Psalm 119 and just them being so enamored with God and with this law that he set up, you also got to take into consideration the other nations that weren't of God and how honestly just crazy and they were living, and how outside of God's law, it was just mayhem and it was brutal.
Yeah.
And this God's law actually gives so much meaning to life and so much purpose. And now we're inviting our kids into that. And it's a beautiful thing that we get to reveal to our kids, help shape their hearts in that. You're right, man. Just looking at that, it's so... It is. The law is more freeing than it ever will be refraining.
Yeah, exactly. So I know we've talked kind of the bigger picture, but our kids are not going to be naturally courageous in hard situations. Mm-hmm. We know this, like oftentimes the reason why a kid will lie to somebody is because they're afraid of what happens if we found out the truth. Something like that. There's fear in that. There's oftentimes like societal pressures, like social pressures at school with friend groups, things like that. Like, this is not something that's going to come naturally. So we should talk a little bit about like, what can we do to help? Like, how can we help if we have somebody similar to the question, their kid is wanting to make the right choice, but afraid of the consequences of it. I think one of the first things is having some empathy with our kids, that there is a cost to doing the right thing.
Okay.
Not minimizing that.
Share a little bit about that.
And I think, and we've talked about this in other episodes, it's easy for us as adults to look at what our kids would look at as a big deal and think, oh, that's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Who cares if the mean friends that don't like that kid also don't like you? Who cares? Sweat it off. We look at these things. I think, though, if we minimize that stuff, if we minimize the cost of courage to our kids, then that's actually going to discourage them from being courageous in those moments. So I think it starts with a level of empathy that when they're facing these things, even if we don't necessarily think it's a big deal from our perspective, I think coming alongside and saying, yeah, that is really hard, and I understand why you're struggling with making that choice.
Yeah, let's be good listeners in that moment.
Yeah.
And hear them for where they're at, and just, I think that's a great practice of like letting them feel what they're feeling in that moment and just talking with them through it. That's good.
Yeah. And along with that, I think that allows us to be with them in it, and we talked about this before recording, when Joshua is talking about, be strong and courageous, the next line is because the Lord your God is with you.
Yeah.
And I know you found another example.
I found a really sweet father-son moment.
Yeah.
In First Chronicles, David's kind of giving his last instructions to Israel, and then he kind of even goes and singles out Solomon, his son. And it's First Chronicles 28, starting at verse 20. He says, "Then David said to Solomon his son, 'Be strong and courageous, and do it. And do not be afraid, and do not be dismayed. For the Lord God, even my God, is with you. He will not leave you or forsake you.'" And so I think it's just that mindset of always remembering that God is with us. And that's Jesus' promise to us at the end of Matthew 28, right?
Yeah.
"I will be with you to the ends of the ages forever." Like, it's like walking with your big brother, knowing that nobody else could get you because you have a big brother that's going to get them or something. You can walk with confidence because God is with you.
No, I love that. I always think of the transfer of David and Solomon, just the David and Solomon story, through the lens of Godfather 1 and Godfather 2, which definitely makes it less sweet. But maybe not wrong.
Yeah.
It really is this idea of, like, we can have courage because God is with us. And that is prevalent throughout the scriptures. And so one of the ways we can help our kids understand that is for us to also be with them in it. Walk through the circumstances with them, talk about it, empathize with them about the costs of it, and then talk to them about the bigger good that comes from the choices that they're making. One of the things that we as parents get to do is we get to help our kids contextualize their experiences into the true story of the world. And over again, without that guidance, it's easy for kids to mistake the wrong priority, or misunderstand kind of the nature of how we get to kind of say, that's really hard what you're doing. And I really get why you don't want to make that choice or why you're struggling to make that choice. But this is the true story of the world. And this is why doing the right thing in this moment is really the good thing long term. This is why we are meant to live like this. And as you kind of help them storytell that a little bit, I think that they come away saying, I want to do this, not just because it's the right thing, but because it's the good thing. The other thing of being with them in it is also give them a lot of grace as they struggle. They will not do the courageous thing oftentimes.
Yeah.
There will be many times in which they do the wrong thing, or they choose to not act with courage in moments. And I think it's easy as parents to look at that and be like, oh, they're never going to have courage. They're never going to do the right thing. Or just be like, we're failing, like our kids are weak or cowards or whatever. And I think it's important for us to step back and like, this is not something they're going to get right away. This is not something they're going to be good at right away. And most likely they will be not courageous decisions far more frequently than they make courageous decisions as they go through their childhood.
Yeah, and I think having that atmosphere of grace in the home and using each moment as a teachable discipleship moment with their kid, like, hey, here's what I saw you did. Maybe there's a different or better way.
Yeah.
And tell them that, like encourage them with that.
Yeah.
But don't beat them down because, that's the kid. You don't want your kids to like also sit in fear of, oh no, I did make a mistake. Now I'm going to now my parents are going to come down hard on me. Now I'm double not courageous. And so we want to just embolden our kids, coach them through it, teach them through it. And also I think a big chunk of it is us modeling it. Us having lives where we are doing courageous things.
Yeah. And in fact, that might be one of the most important things that we do. Like if we want our kids to have the courage to make the right choice in the hard moments, then they should be seeing us doing that on a regular basis. And we have the opportunity to do that all the time. It can be something as simple as, I think of like, as a parent, you're going through life and either disappointments happen, challenging circumstances happen regarding like your finances or your job or something like that. I think that in those moments, you can have the courage to be like, hey, I'm still going to be grateful for the things that I have. I'm still going to be like confident that God is with us in the midst of this. I'm not going to be afraid of that. And I'm still going to do the right thing, even if the world is not treating me fairly in those moments. So there could be like little moments like that, big moments like that Some of us will face times in which maybe doing the right thing is going to cost us friendships. Maybe doing the right thing is going to cost us, have some financial consequences to us, social consequences to us. I think that those are all ways in which we can ultimately communicate, this is what it looks like to be courageous.
Next week on Blueprints.
Welcome to
Man, dropping pins and taking names.
No. I didn't even make it through the first word. Oh no. Okay, well, welcome to Blueprints. Should I start I was thinking, could this be a funny keep rolling thing?
Oh man.
Now I've messed that up. Is anybody out there?
Hello.
Hey, this is Chad from Phoenix. Blueprints is a production of GBF, a nonprofit that equips ordinary parents to raise extraordinary kids. GBF makes free resources for parents thanks to the generosity of listeners like you. To join in the work of transforming generations of families, go to gracebasedfamilies.com/join.